Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing super well. Today we're going to be talking about what happened to 25-year-old Tiana Notice. I do just want to give a quick trigger warning because we are going to be discussing domestic violence in this case. And this is just one of those cases where you're just going to feel so frustrated, so angry, and just so annoyed at the fact that this even happened and just annoyed at how police handled this case. They were so negligent and it's just so frustrating to listen to. So I'm just putting a little warning out there that this case is graphic and we are going to be talking about DV. Thank you guys so much for being here and for being a part of La Familia and for listening to Tiana's story. You guys are seriously the best. Like, I appreciate you guys so much. Every single one of you guys that watches my videos. You guys have no idea how much that means to me. And I did just want to let you guys know that I do have a podcast coming soon. I know this is something that has been heavily requested, so that's why I've been a little busy these past few weeks because I've been preparing all of this and just getting everything ready for the launch date, and I'm so excited about it. I will definitely share more details with you guys as the date gets closer. If you guys ever want to see like behind the scenes footage of me setting up the podcast and building the stage and all that stuff, you guys can check out my personal TikTok account, which is La Jackie Flores. I'll have that link down below if you guys want to check it out because I will be posting a lot of exciting, behind the scene footage. Again, none of this would be possible without you guys, so I just want to say thank you for all the love and support that you guys have given me. But alright, you guys, that's pretty much all I have to say. Let's jump right into today's video. Tiana Angelique Notice was born on February 4th, 1984 in Massachusetts. She was born to her parents Alvin Notice and Kathy Lewis, and she has three brothers, Tyrone, Tyrell, and Christian. She also has a stepmother named Veronica and a stepsister named Natasha. So she had a very big family and they all had a very close and loving relationship. Tiana's family says that when she was 6 years old, they knew that she was special. She was a very artistic child who had a love and passion for listening and writing music. She would participate in choir and in different singing groups, and on top of doing the singing, she also did the writing. She wrote her own songs and she also dabbled in some poetry, so just by that, you can see how creative, artistic, and mature Tiana was for her age. In fact, she had always been a little bit ahead of her age group. She actually completed her high school degree while doing her first year of university at Fitchburg State College, which is so impressive. The fact that she was finishing high school while also starting university is just a very big accomplishment, and from there, Tiana's education continued to excel. She enrolled at the University of Hartford in Connecticut, and there she quickly became an activist who founded a chapter of the Roosevelt Institution on campus. Now, the Roosevelt Institution is a non-profit national network of campus-based student think tanks. Its members conduct policy research on the pressing political issues facing the world, and they present this research to policymakers. So Tiana founded a chapter in this program, and from there, her activism work continued. She also participated and volunteered at the Women's Center on campus, and the goal of the center is to promote Eating Disorder Awareness Week and to also promote World AIDS Day. So she had a lot going on in her life, but that's exactly how Tiana wanted it to go. She loved being busy with things that she was passionate about, and she just had so many goals and things that she wanted to accomplish in the future. She graduated from the University of Hartford with a degree in political science, and her mother Kathy says that Tiana loved to argue with people, so she actually told her daughter that she should think about becoming a lawyer. That way she could get paid to argue and debate with people. And Tiana was kind of thinking about it. She was thinking maybe she could go work in politics, maybe she could even go get a law degree and become a lawyer. So that definitely was something that she had in the back of her mind. But in the meantime, while she figured out if she wanted to be a lawyer or not, Tiana decided to continue her education and she enrolled again at the University of Hartford, and she was working towards getting her master's degree in communications. She was about one semester away from getting her master's degree, and while she was studying at school, she also got a part-time job working at a university in Waterbury, Connecticut. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. I literally just watched like 5 videos on how to pronounce that, but it's just completely phasing my brain right now. But anyway, she got a job at a university in Waterbury, Connecticut, so she actually moved to Plainville, Connecticut to be, a little bit closer to work and also closer to school. and she would go to her job in the morning at the university, and then at night she would take her night classes. And again, I don't know how she managed to do all of that. Her family says that clever is an understatement. To them, Tiana was absolutely brilliant. They said that her smile, her intelligence, her compassion, confidence, beauty, and her grace are just a few of the qualities that everyone loved about her. She was a beautiful person inside and out, and she was so excited for what her future was going to look like. Now again, Tiana was a busy girl, so she had a lot on her plate, and she wasn't really looking for a serious relationship. She actually had just ended a 5-year relationship with an ex-boyfriend from college, so she wasn't really dating, and she was kind of just vibing on her own. However, that all changed when she met a man on MySpace in 2008. This man was James Carter. Now, based on James' profile, it seemed like he was like a well-off, put together guy. He said that he was an executive at an insurance firm, that he owned his own house, that, he had his own car and was successful. He told Tiana that he didn't have any kids, but that he did want to have kids in the future, and that, he wasn't married or anything like that. Tiana's father, Alvin, also looked at James' profile, and he agreed with Tiana. It looked like this guy had everything, put together in his life and was just like a well-off executive. On the other hand, when Tiana's mother, Kathy, looked at James' profile, she did not agree with Alvin and with Tiana. She says that as soon as she saw James' photo, she did not like him. She doesn't know if it was her mother's intuition or what it was, but she says that as soon as she saw James' photo, she got bad vibes from him. But Tiana liked this man, so she continued to talk to James through MySpace, and they eventually decided to meet in person. They met in a public space, and everything went well. Tiana really liked James, they really hit it off, and he seemed like a good person. They continued dating and meeting in person until things got official in their relationship. They became boyfriend and girlfriend, and again, at first, everything seemed to be fine. However, 6 months into their relationship, Tiana learned a disturbing fact about James. He was actually being charged with domestic abuse for an ex-girlfriend, and he was being sentenced to serve 5 months in jail for this crime. Now, he never told Tiana about this ex-girlfriend. He never told Tiana about this charge against him. He never told her about the sentencing hearing. He literally told her nothing. Again, through his MySpace profile, he made it seem like he was this super amazing guy, that was rich and had his life together, but in reality, that was all false. James didn't have this perfect life, and in fact, Tiana learned that James had a rap sheet for a handful of other crimes that ranged from DV to assault. This was all very shocking news to Tiana. She had no idea that the guy that she had been dating for the past 6 months was this criminal. So James ended up going to prison, he served his time, and when he was released from jail, him and Tiana continued their relationship. Now please, let's try not to victim blame. We don't know why the relationship continued. All I saw was an interview that Alvin, Tiana's father, did, and he confirmed that yes, they continued their relationship when he was released from jail, but he didn't explain why. And this rekindling of the relationship didn't last very long. Tiana's father, Alvin, suspected that James was cheating on Tiana, and Tiana just couldn't get over the domestic violence charge, and she couldn't get over her father thinking that James was cheating on her. So after about a year of dating, Tiana ended the relationship with James. She broke up with him in January of 2009, and James did not take this breakup well at all. He began stalking and harassing Tiana. He would call Tiana, he would send her messages, he would send her emails, and Tiana would ignore all of this, but that still didn't deter James. He would show up at her apartment, he would park his car in the parking lot and just sit there watching Tiana. He would also follow her to work, he would follow her to the university. He would just follow her everywhere she went, whether she was by herself or if she was with a friend or with her family. James was there watching her. And no matter what Tiana did to try to stop James from continuing this harassment, he just wouldn't stop. She was feeling very nervous and scared about this, and she told her dad, quote, "He just won't leave me alone." And since he just wouldn't stop this harassment, Tiana decided to go to the Plainville Police Department and file a restraining order against James. Thankfully, Tiana was granted this RO, and it stated that James should refrain from threatening, harassing, stalking, assaulting, or attacking Tiana. Now, Now, when James found out that Tiana had gotten a restraining order against him, he was angry. He wanted to get revenge on Tiana, so he actually called the police and he accused Tiana of DV. He told the police that Tiana had assaulted him, that she had kicked the headlight of his car, and that she had punched him in the face. He even went to Tiana's apartment with the police to confront her in person, all to rattle Tiana. Now, he didn't have any evidence that Tiana had abused him. He didn't have any injuries. He didn't have any proof that this actually happened, but police did take his statement seriously and they did grant him a restraining order against Tiana. So now the both of them had restraining orders against each other. And even though James had literally requested a restraining order against Tiana, he continued to stalk and harass her. Tiana started receiving emails from this girl named Jessica Banderas, and this girl Jessica claimed that she was an ex-girlfriend of James, and she was sending Tiana these very nasty and threatening emails. They were horrible emails, and Tiana knew that there was no Jessica. These emails were most likely coming from James himself. Now, besides receiving these nasty emails from this Jessica girl, she also received nasty and threatening emails from James himself. In one email he sent, he said, "Trust me, baby girl, you are going to lose everything. As God is my witness, punishment is on the way, so be prepared." He also sent her another email that said, "You will have bad luck. You hear me? Remember this email when karma bites you in the ass." These emails are incredibly frightening, and Tiana was scared. She told her family about what James was doing, about how he was following her at her apartment, he was following her at work, to school, to the grocery store, and about these threatening emails. They all told her that she needed to go to the police department and report James for violating his restraining order. He was literally banned from talking to Tiana and from harassing her, yet he was doing the complete opposite. So Tiana went over to the Plainville Police Department and she reported James for violating the restraining order. She showed police all of the phone calls and messages and emails that he had sent, the emails from Jessica Banderas and the emails from James himself, but police were not very helpful. They told Tiana that these emails were really not that threatening and they didn't do anything about it, which is insane to me. I literally don't understand what the police were thinking or how this process is supposed to go down. If someone is literally violating a restraining order and is sending these threatening messages, literally telling her that karma is going to bite her in the ass and that, punishment is coming towards her, how is that not threatening? It just doesn't make sense to me, and the emails just didn't stop. Over the next 6 weeks, Tiana went to the police department over 33 times. 33 times to report James, to file a complaint against him, to just make note of all of this harassment and stalking, and yet police never did anything. Despite all of this harassment and stalking, Tiana continued on with her life. She continued to go to school to get her master's degree. She continued her job at the university, and on top of that, she also began a new relationship. She began dating an ex-boyfriend named Robert, and she told Robert all about James and how he was harassing her and just causing all of this pain and anxiety in her life. So it's not like this was a secret. She was telling people about all of the incidents that she had with James. At this point, Tiana was just so over James and she just wanted to focus on her new relationship with Robert and just focus on the future, and she just hoped that this would all eventually stop. Now, some reports state that Tiana had told James about this new relationship with Robert. However, I don't know how factual that statement is. I don't know if Tiana told James about this in hopes that maybe he would finally get over her and move on, or if maybe he discovered this on his own since he was stalking her and watching her. Maybe he saw Robert and Tiana together and that's how he found out. I'm not sure. Either way, when Tiana began dating Robert, the harassment and the stalking escalated. On February 7th, 2009, just a few days after Tiana's 25th birthday, Tiana discovered that the tires of her car had been slashed. All 4 of them. At this point, she knew it was James, so she went over to the Plainville Police Department and reported this incident to the police. However, they told her that there really was no way to prove that James had actually done this. There was no surveillance camera that captured him. There was no witnesses, nothing like that. So because there really wasn't any proof to show that James had done this, police didn't do anything. Tiana felt so frustrated, so she called her dad Alvin and she vented to him about the situation. And as Alvin was hearing this, he was thinking to himself, okay, if they want proof, the only way we can get that is by having a camera. That way we could actually capture James doing these things and police can finally arrest him. So that's when Alvin decided that it was time to install a security camera at Tiana's apartment. This camera was placed outside of her door and it was pointing towards the parking lot. That way, if James ever came there and parked his car to watch Tiana, or if he slashed her tires, there would be evidence of it. Alvin says that that night he spent about 4 hours with Tiana going over the new security system and, going over what she should do if someone attacks her. In fact, they even did a little bit of role play, and Alvin pretended to be James, attacking her in the middle of the night. That way Tiana could practice where to run to and where to go to if this did actually happen. Alvin just felt better knowing that there were cameras and that if James ever did try to, slash her tires or attack Tiana, there would now be proof of it. A few days later, on February 13th, the day before Valentine's Day, Tiana was at work at the university when she received a handful of calls from James. He called non-stop at her office and Tiana just had enough. She just could not live like this any longer, and thankfully this time there was a witness to this harassment. Her coworker was actually there and she witnessed James calling the office non-stop trying to talk to Tiana. So now Tiana felt better about going to the police and reporting this because she actually had a witness. Her coworker could testify and tell the police that yes, she saw James violating his restraining order and she was hoping that this would finally lead to an arrest. So Tiana called the Plainville Police Department and she reported James for violating his restraining order. However, they told her that since she worked in Waterbury, Connecticut, and that's where the calls were made to, she needed to go to the Waterbury, Connecticut Police Department and make the complaint there, which was so frustrating, but Tiana agreed to this. So when 5 p.m. hit and she got off work at the university, she headed over to the Waterbury Police Department and reported James. But once again, the police were not too helpful. The police officer taking the report told Tiana that he didn't really know if this restraining order was even real. In fact, he accused Tiana of having a fake restraining order, which is insane to me because this officer could have just called the Plainville Police Department and confirmed this. He could have spoken to the police officers there, or spoken to a judge there, or someone in the judicial system there, but he just didn't. He told Tiana that he couldn't confirm this was a real restraining order, and since he couldn't confirm this, he wasn't going to do anything about James. Tiana left the police station crying. She got inside her car and she called her mom and told her about what she had just gone through. She said, "Mom, you wouldn't believe these people. They treated me like dirt. They didn't believe anything I told them. They thought I was lying, and one officer accused me of having a fake restraining order." And hearing this just broke Kathy's heart. She didn't understand why police wouldn't take her daughter seriously. Again, at this point, Tiana had gone to the police over 30 times and they just never did anything. So at this point, Kathy was feeling so frustrated and she was so concerned about what was going to happen to her daughter. Tiana had called the Plainville Police Department and she asked them to fax over a copy of the restraining order to the Waterbury Police Department to prove to them that this was real. But at the same time, Kathy was concerned that the Waterbury Police Department was still not going to take it seriously. So she actually called the police sergeant and she confronted him about his behavior towards Tiana. And this sergeant literally told Kathy, "Nothing is going to happen to your daughter." And he was kind of sassy towards Kathy and he told her, "Listen, it's President's Day weekend. I don't have any detectives here to handle the case. So, once the long weekend is over, Tiana can come back on Tuesday to continue the report." I cannot believe that those words came out of that sergeant's mouth, and it's just so scary how, you could go into the police station and report, domestic violence and report harassment, and they can literally just brush you off and tell you to come back after the holiday. Kathy was so shocked at this attitude, and she told the sergeant, "Listen, I don't want my daughter to become a statistic, and I'm telling you now, if something happens to my daughter, you better move to another planet." Later that night at around 7:20 p.m., Tiana made it back to her apartment in Plainville, Connecticut, and when she entered her home, she found a note. This note had been pushed underneath her door, and it said, "Tiana, forgive me. I never cheated on you. If I'm lying, may God take my life. Forgive me for everything else that I have done." Now, this person didn't even need to sign the letter because as soon as Tiana saw it, she immediately knew that this was from James. She could not believe that the harassment had gotten to the point where James was literally sliding things under her apartment door, and she just felt so scared knowing that James had been there just a few hours ago at her front door putting this note there. She was ready to report this incident to the police, and since her father had installed the security camera at her door, she figured that there was going to finally be proof of this incident. So she went over to the security camera, and when she went to go look at the footage, she realized that the tape had run out. So now there was no video footage of James arriving to her house and, putting this note underneath her door. All the proof that she had was the note. The next day, it was February 14th, Valentine's Day. Tiana had made plans to spend the afternoon with her boyfriend, Robert. In fact, Robert was planning on proposing to Tiana that day. He had the ring picked out, he had everything planned for that day, but unfortunately, he had to cancel all of their plans because he caught the flu. He called Tiana to let her know that he was going to have to cancel, and she was very understanding. She told him to feel better and that she would see him soon. As the day continued, Tiana discovered that the night before, on February 13th, she had received more harassing and threatening emails from James, which meant that once again he had violated his restraining order. In one of the emails, he wrote, "Please don't tell the cops about this. Please. Get rid of the restraining order so I can get a job. I'm extremely nervous. I'm taking a risk by talking to you." After reading these emails and after receiving the note from the night before, Tiana finally had enough. She went over to the Plainville Police Department and she reported James one last time. This time, police finally listened to her complaint and they told her that they were going to get James, bring him down to the station, and arrest him. They wanted to compare his handwriting to the handwriting that was on the note to see if it was a match, and they were also going to confront him about the emails that he had sent her. And since all of that would prove that he had violated the restraining order, they were going to arrest him. After hearing this hopeful news, Tiana got back inside her car. She called Robert and she told him it's finally over. However, that wasn't true. Police did not go arrest James. Instead, a police officer called James and confronted him over the phone. He told James, "Listen, I want to talk to you about some emails that you sent." And as soon as James heard this, he denied sending any emails. He told the officer that his ex-girlfriend, Jessica Banderas, had access to his email and was most likely the one sending these emails. He literally said on the phone call, "There's a restraining order against me, so I would never violate that." He literally said that. And the police officer told him that if he violated the restraining order again, he would have him arrested. So not only have the police lied to Tiana about arresting James, they have now notified James about the fact that Tiana had gone to the police and reported him. And if you recall, in the email that he sent Tiana, he specifically told her not to go to the police. So now, in his eyes, Tiana disobeyed him, and he was angry. Meanwhile, Tiana has no idea that any of this is happening. She left the police station with the impression that police were going to arrest him and that this was finally over. That weekend, Tiana wasn't going to be sleeping at her apartment because her family had told her to not go back there, to not live at her apartment until James was actually behind bars. So she was going to go stay with her mother that weekend. However, she quickly wanted to stop by her apartment to pack a bag and get some of her things. And since police had told her that they were going to arrest James, she figured it was safe to go back. So at around 9:30 p.m. on the night of Valentine's Day, Tiana returned to her apartment alone. She got out of the car, she walked to her front door, and there, someone attacked her. Someone stabbed her over 20 times, twice in the heart. Now, despite just having been brutally attacked, Tiana managed to call 911 and ask for help. This 911 call is available online, but I am just warning you, it is very disturbing and very graphic. The 911 operator answers the phone and Tiana screams, "Help, I'm bleeding to death. My ex-boyfriend just stabbed me to death." She's screaming on the phone, and at this point, her neighbors can hear her screaming and asking for help. So they run over to help her, and at this moment, they see a black car speeding away from the parking lot. The neighbors do their best to keep Tiana calm, and in the 911 call, you can hear one of the neighbors tell Tiana, "You're not going to die. You're not going to die." Paramedics arrived at the scene and they immediately rushed Tiana to the nearest hospital. Her mother, Kathy, says that she arrived to the hospital at around midnight and that as soon as she walked in and identified herself to the receptionist, she knew that this was bad news. The receptionist, the doctors, the nurses, the surgeons, everyone just had a blank stare on their face. They pulled the family over to the side and they told the family that they did everything that they could to save Tiana. They even hand massaged her heart to try to revive her, but unfortunately, Tiana had lost too much blood. Tiana was gone. Alvin had to go to the operation room to identify his daughter, and he says that when he walked in and just saw his daughter lying on this table, he just couldn't believe that this was real life. He says there were stab wounds everywhere, and the first thought that came to his mind was, who did this? However, he didn't really have to think for too long because he immediately knew who had done this: James Carter. Everyone knew that James had done this, but to add to the evidence, Tiana had literally identified the killer in her 911 call. She literally said, "My ex-boyfriend stabbed me to death." And the only ex-boyfriend that she had at the time that could have done this was James Carter. So within a few hours of Tiana's murder, police arrested James and charged him on suspicion of murder. His trial began in October of 2011, and there was just a mountain of evidence against him. First of all, there were all those emails and phone calls and text messages that he had sent Tiana, threatening her about going to the police, telling her that karma was gonna get her and that she was gonna get punished. There was also the coworker that had witnessed James harassing Tiana at work. There was a note and, all the police reports that Tiana had made against him. On top of that, again, Tiana had identified her killer in the 911 call, and the security camera that Alvin had installed captured James leaving the scene. Now, the attack happened off camera, so you can't see it happening, but you can hear it and you can see James running away. To add to that, the neighbors also saw a black car speeding away from the parking lot, and that car matched the car that James drove. Lastly, on the night of the murder, James had actually called his brother and confessed to killing Tiana. He told his brother that he had just stabbed her, and during the trial, his own brother testified against James and confirmed that he had confessed to the crime. The 911 call and the surveillance footage from the day of the attack were shown to the jury, so there was just so much evidence against James. In the end, the jury found James Carter guilty. He was sentenced to 60 years in prison and will be eligible for parole after 25 years. During his sentencing hearing, Alvin was outside of the courthouse and he was holding up an apology letter that James had written to the family. In this letter, he said, "I hope you can find it in your hearts and prayers to forgive me for what I have done. I apologize sincerely from my heart and soul. God forgives, and hopefully you can too. Please accept my apology." Alvin says that when he read this apology, it didn't really mean much to him. He felt that James truly had no remorse for what he had done. Alvin says that the prison sentence will never erase the family's grief, but the family was glad that justice was finally served. He said, "It's finally time for justice for Tiana's murder. I hope that he will spend the rest of his life in prison thinking each and every day of what he has done." Tiana's family was absolutely heartbroken by the death of their beautiful daughter, Tiana. It was so painful and difficult for them to know that Tiana had asked for help numerous times, but had been let down by the police department. Again, in the course of 6 weeks, Tiana had gone to the police department over 33 times to report James, and yet he was never detained, he was never arrested, he was never questioned for it, nothing. Kathy says that the last few months of her daughter's life were horrendous because she had to endure James terrorizing her and being ignored by the police. The day Tiana was murdered, she literally had gone to the police station and asked them for help. She showed them the note, she showed them the emails, and they told her that they were going to arrest James. That's why she felt safe enough to go back to her apartment that night, because they told her that James was going to be behind bars. It's just horrible, and Tiana's family was just so frustrated by the way that police had handled this case that they actually filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the Plainville Police Department and against the Waterbury, Connecticut Police Department. They failed to arrest James for repeatedly violating the restraining order in the weeks leading up to her death. In the end, the jury sided with the family and they determined that 3 police officers from the Plainville Police Department and 2 officers from the Waterbury, Connecticut Police Department were negligent in connection to Tiana's death, and they awarded the family $10 $10 million. Of course, money wasn't going to bring Tiana back, but at least this way, the police department was held responsible for the way they acted during this case, and they were held accountable for the mistakes that they had made. And going through this entire process made Alvin realize that something needed to change. I mean, what happened here? Why did the police fail his daughter? He just wanted more action from the police, more action from legislators, and more action from the courts. He wanted to get to the bottom of this and figure out how this happened, how James had slipped through the cracks, and he says that there was a failure in the system. He was determined to fix it so that no one else's child would be murdered like his daughter. So after Tiana's death, Alvin and Kathy created the Tiana Angelique Notice Foundation. The goal of this foundation is to toughen laws against domestic violence cases and murders. They're fighting to protect women against the system that failed Tiana. Through this work, they created a GPS system that helps alert victims when their attacker is nearby. Now, this GPS monitoring is put in place when the judicial system determines that an abuser is at a very high risk. They specifically try to assess whether the abuser exhibits the traits that often lead to murder. So through this GPS system, the victim is alerted anytime her abuser is near her home, her work, her school, her family's home, etc. That way they can prepare themselves if they see that the attacker is nearby. Alvin believes that if James had had this GPS system on him the day of the murder, Tiana would have known that he was at her apartment waiting for her, and she would probably still be here today. On top of creating this GPS system, the foundation also provides educational resources on the cycle of violence, the importance of self-worth and self-empowerment, and their goal is to increase awareness on violence against women, as well as offer resources to legal and financial assistance for victims of DV. It's just amazing how they're working so hard to protect women, and it just breaks my heart that they're trying to fix a system that failed their daughter. I will link this foundation down below so you guys can check it out because they do really amazing work, and they also have a Facebook page. They do accept donations if you guys want to help out the foundation. I will be making a donation on behalf of La Familia, and it's just really amazing the work that they're doing. If you or someone you know needs help, you can contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE. This hotline is anonymous and is available 24/7. This was such a difficult case to talk about, and it just makes me so angry to know that Tiana had gone to the police 33 times and asked for help. And the statement that Kathy made about how her daughter's last few months were just terrorizing and so, scary and nerve-wracking, just makes me so sad of what Tiana had to go through in her final months of life. And my thoughts and prayers go out to Tiana and her family. I'm so sorry that this happened to your daughter, and I truly hope that your work continues with the foundation and that you continue to be a part of the solution. And with that, that is all the information that I have for today's video. I know this was a tough one to listen to, and I just want to thank you guys for being here and for listening to Tiana's story. Real quick before we end the video, I just want to give a shout out to today's Familia feature. Today's Familia feature goes out to Gloria Rivera. Thank you, Gloria, for being part of La Familia, and if you guys want to be featured in the next Familia feature, all you have to do is click the subscribe button down below. Thank you guys again so much for being here, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye guys!